We've discovered that we have two varieties of fifths that we can find in a major scale. We have that variety of fifth that has 7 half steps, and we have that variety of fifth that has 6 half steps. We have a way of acknowledging that and talking about that in music theory, and I would like to introduce you to that right now. Let's start with that kind of fifth that we found most commonly in the major scale, which was the kind of fifth that had 7 half steps. And let me write one of those fifths. Let me write the fifth from D going up to A. That's one of those fifths that we had that has 7 half steps. And I'm going to write that 0 to 7 down below just to remind us that we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. A fifth that has 7 half steps is known as a perfect fifth. And very often we abbreviate perfect fifth as P, uppercase P, with a 5 next to it. So most of the fifths that we found in the major scale are perfect fifths. The C to the G, the D to the A, the E to the B, the F to the C, the G to the D, and the A to the E. But then we found that one kind of fifth that only had 6 half steps. And let's write that over here. That's the sixth. Sorry, that's the fifth that goes from B to F. And I'm just going to write that 0-6 down here to remind myself that we're going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we call this kind of sixth a diminished. I'm sorry, this kind of fifth, a diminished fifth. Sometimes we abbreviate that as a D, lowercase d with a 5 next to it. And that makes sense because that word diminished simply means to decrease something. So we're in a sense decreasing the perfect fifth, which is 7 half steps, by 1 half step, and leaving it a little bit diminished with only 6 half steps. And the only diminished fifth that we find in the major scale is between B and F. All the rest are perfect fifths. Now, there's actually another kind of fifth that we recognize in music theory, and this is a fifth that we don't find naturally in a major scale. So I'm going to have to make some alterations to our major scale to actually show it to you. But this is a fifth that has not 6, not 7, but 8 half steps. So I'm going to write the 0 to 8 just to remind myself that this has 8 half steps. And this is known as an augmented fifth. And that word augmented means to increase something. So if a diminished fifth takes 1 half step away from a perfect fifth, an augmented fifth adds 1 half step to a perfect fifth. And let's see if we can actually do that. And again, we can't do this within the major scale, but we can add an accidental, a sharp or a flat, to see if we can make that happen. So let's again start on D, and we know that our perfect fifth would be D to A. That's our perfect fifth. And let's go down to the keyboard here. Here's our D. Here's our A, our perfect fifth. So we know that D, if we're counting half steps, will be 0, D sharp 1, E 2, F 3, F sharp 4, G 5, G sharp 6, A 7. And then where do we go from A? How can we go one more half step? Well, we can augment or increase this A by 1 half step, which would leave us here on A sharp, right? Right here, this black key right above A sharp. So that would be an augmented fifth, a fifth that has 8 half steps. Notice, by the way, even though we have 3 different varieties of fifth with 3 different varieties of half steps, or 3 numbers of half steps in between them, each of these fifths still covers 5 letter names, right? If we go up to here, B to F, let's count it out. B1, C2, D3, E4, F5. So it's still the interval of a fifth. Same thing with D to A. Let's count it out on our letter chart up here. D1, C, E2, F3, G4, A5. Again, still a fifth. And even our augmented fifth, even though we've altered this A, it's still an A. So if I count this out on my letters, D1, E2, F3, G4, A5. Notice when we're counting out the letters here, we don't really care about the accidentals. We don't care if it's an A sharp or an A natural. We're still counting it as one letter name. That's going to be key coming up, and we'll talk about that in some future videos. But in the next video, I now want to expand what we're able to do with these diminished perfect and augmented fifths, because we can actually create a diminished, a perfect, or an augmented fifth on any one of the 12 notes within the octave of a piano keyboard. So any one of the black or white keys of a piano keyboard. And in the next video, we will learn how to do just that.